Before we get into today's show, let me tell you about the latest deal from Mike Lindell, MyPillow. Once again, the big box stores have canceled their orders simply because they don't agree with Mike Lindell's politics. They don't like it because he supports President Trump. Well, he's going to pass that savings on to you. No more middleman. And boy, does he have some great deals on the Giza Dream sheets and the Percal bed sheets. Listen to this. Giza Dream queen size, normally $139.98. Your wholesale price, $69.99 when you use promo code Joey. King size, only $79.99. The Percal queen size, normally $89.98. Your wholesale price, $29.98 when you use promo code Joey. Just call 1-800-893-4059 or go to MyPillow.com. Always use promo code Joey. Free shipping options available. This allotment's not going to last very long. When they're gone, they're gone. MyPillow.com. Promo code Joey. Thanks for joining me in the PhD Weight Loss and Nutrition Studios. To lose weight for the last time, visit myphdweightloss.com. Iran's president responded to President Donald Trump saying there are no radicals or moderates. This in response to the president saying the country's hardline and moderate leaders are infighting over who will lead the Islamic Republic Guard. We have our daily update from Iran for you. A Colorado district attorney has charged a federal immigration officer with third-degree assault and criminal mischief in a move the Department of Homeland Security called unlawful and a political stunt. A father's being called a hero after he drowned, saving his 12-year-old son from a rip current at a popular beach destination in Florida. What a sad story there. Meanwhile, a physically healthy British woman who is heartbroken over the death of her only son is heading to Switzerland to end her own life at an assisted suicide clinic. We have a lot to cover today. Glad you're with us.
I told you we'd be back.
And ye shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free.
It's Joey Hudson.
I wanted to name it the Joey Hudson bill, but, they don't allow you to put names on bills. But I wanted to call it the Joey Hudson bill because I know that one's been near and dear to you for a number of years.
That's how it's done. Let your voice be heard.
And the truth shall set you free.
Here's Joey Hudson.
A ceasefire between the U.S. and Iran continues as President Trump says he is waiting to receive a peace proposal from Tehran. Fox's Lucas Tomlinson has more from the White House.
The president taking to Truth Social, quote, Iran is having a very hard time figuring out who their leader is. They just don't know. The infighting is between the hardliners who have been losing badly on the battlefield and the moderates who are not very moderate at all, but gaining respect is crazy. There's a report out of Israel that Iran's chief negotiator and parliamentary speaker, Mohammad Ghalibaf, has resigned from the negotiating team after intervention from the IRGC. Apparently responding to President Trump, Ghalibaf posting on X, in Iran there are no radicals or moderates. We are all Iranian and revolutionary, and with the iron unity of the nation and government with complete obedience to the supreme leader.
Bottom line is this. There's still a lot of chaos in Iran, and who's running the country, and more importantly, who's authorized to negotiate on their behalf. So here's where we are. Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian responded to President Donald Trump, who said yesterday that the country's hardline and moderate leaders are infighting over who will lead the Islamic Republic. In a social media post, the Iranian president noted that there are no moderates or radicals. Here's what he said. In Iran, there are no radicals or moderates. We are all Iranian and revolutionary, and with the iron unity of the nation and government and complete obedience to the supreme leader of the revolution, we will make the aggressor criminal regret his actions. Iran is only the path of victory, he said, which is more precious than life. And that's the problem there. That's the key word there. When he says Iran only has the path of victory and it's more precious than life, they do not appreciate life like you and I do. Now, meanwhile, U.S. Central Command, CENTCOM, announced yesterday that a third aircraft carrier has arrived in the Middle East. This came after President Trump extended the ceasefire indefinitely. In a post, CENTCOM said Nimitz-class aircraft carrier USS George H.W. Bush sails in the Indian Ocean in the U.S. Central Command area of responsibility April 23rd. Former Special Representative for Iran, Elliot Abrams, said Thursday that President Trump has been correct to highlight fractured decision-making in Tehran. Abrams, who served in the role during President Trump's first term, also said the president was right to give the regime more time to fight it out. He is appearing on America's Newsroom. He told Dana Perino that the president's right. They have a power struggle.
Yes, I think first, great to see you, Dana. I think the president's right. They're having a power struggle. It used to be that any power struggle would be resolved by the supreme leader, the late supreme leader. Now they don't really have a supreme leader. You know, they've got his son, but he's invisible. He never speaks on radio. He can't really be leading. So they're fighting it out. And I think the president's idea of giving them a little more time because they're fighting it out is right. He's also right that the moderates are not very moderate. So they're going to have to figure out, you may remember after Islamabad, the foreign minister of Iran made some statement, and the Revolutionary Guards issued a statement almost immediately, basically saying, shut up, you don't speak for us. So they are fighting it out, not, shooting each other, but lots of rivalries for power.
Mr. Abrams went on to say that the regime's so-called moderates are not very moderate, so they're going to have to figure out, lots of the rivalries of power. And that's the scary part about this. When you have such radicals and in a country like this, it's hard to negotiate with them because they're fighting among themselves. They're trying to decide who their voice is. There's reports that the supreme leader, and we'll talk about this a little bit later as time permits, that he is going to have to undergo extreme cosmetic surgery because he is unrecognizable right now. Which, if you are somewhat of a conspiracy theorist, you might think, well, is it really the Khomeini's son? Could it be somebody else? But he's so disfigured, they're not going to tell you, and they're going to make him make him look like somebody completely different. Now, Pope Leo urged the United States and Iran to return to negotiations, calling for a new, quote, culture of peace to replace recourse to violence whenever conflicts arise. Pope Leo told reporters aboard his plane heading back to Rome that the question wasn't whether the Iranian regime should change. He said, quote, the question should be about how to promote the values we believe in without the deaths of so many innocents. As a pastor, I cannot be in favor of war. I would like to encourage everyone to find responses that come from a culture of peace and not hatred and division. I agree with the Pope. I think he needs to be preaching that to Iran, though, right? Because we're ready for peace. We would embrace the culture of peace. Iran, and as we heard just yesterday in some of the comments, they want no part of it right now. They want to still appear to be strong and that they're not bowing to Israel or to the U.S. or to the West in general. At a press conference, the Pope responded to questions over Iran killing thousands of protesters. He said, I condemn all actions that are unjust. I condemn the taking of people's lives. This came after President Trump criticized the Pope for not doing so when he spoke out against the U.S.-Israel war with Iran. Now, Israel Defense Minister Katz said during a security assessment that Israel is waiting for a, quote, green light from the United States to resume fighting against Iran. He told the Times of Israel is prepared to renew the war against Iran. The IDF is ready in defense and offense, and the targets are marked. So they're ready to go. All they need is the word from the U.S., and they'll start pouncing on them again. He said Israel was awaiting a green light, first and foremost, to complete the elimination of the Khomeini dynasty, the initiator of the extermination plan against Israel, and the successors of the leadership of the Iranian terror regime. I hope Iran read that. I hope that quote got back to them and that they understand if they don't come to the table, if they don't quickly settle their differences among themselves, decide who's going to be speaking for them, and get back to the table, that there's still going to be a lot of pain to come. In addition, the Israeli defense minister said that Israel wants to return Iran to the age of darkness and stone by blowing up central energy and electricity facilities and crushing national economic infrastructure. U.S. Central Command noted yesterday, too, in another X post, that U.S. forces have now redirected 33 vessels since the start of the blockade against Iran. The blockade of Iranian ports started more than a week ago when U.S. President Trump announced a ceasefire extension. On a Tuesday of this week, he said that he had ordered the military to keep carrying out the blockade. Also, President Trump announced yesterday morning on Truth Social that he has commanded the U.S. Navy to conduct deadly strikes against any boats placing mines in the Strait of Hormuz. He said, I've ordered the United States Navy to shoot and kill any boat, small boats though they may be, their naval ships are all 159 of them at the bottom of the sea, that is putting mines in the waters of the Strait of Hormuz. He is serious about this, folks. And I don't think I would try to cross him. Would you? Text me, email me, joe@joeyhudson.com. You don't have a weight problem. You have a body that's in survival mode, and no medication, crash diet, or app is going to fix that. Joey Hudson here, Ozempic, Wegovy. These GLP-1 drugs are exploding in popularity, and for some, they're a useful tool, but they don't address why your body started storing fat in the first place. At PhD Weight Loss, they treat the unwanted weight as a symptom, a signal that your metabolism, hormones, and stress response need some attention. When they correct those, the weight comes off naturally, and more importantly, it stays off. Because they're not just helping you lose weight, they're helping you increase health span and extend longevity. Right now, call PhD Weight Loss and mention Joey Hudson. You'll get 2 weeks free in the program, and they'll pay for your food. That's a $1,500 value, completely free. Call 864-644-1900. Do it right now. Mention Joey Hudson. Again, that's 864-644-1900, or go to myphdweightloss.com. No more guessing, no more short-term fixes, just a smarter way forward. Before we move on, I want to come back one more thing on Iran. The New York Post yesterday reported that the supreme leader, Mojtaba Khomeini, hasn't released an audio or video message since assuming power because his face was badly burned in Israeli airstrikes back on February 28th when his dad and other top leaders of the regime were killed. Khomeini, he's 56 years old. Four Iranian officials told the New York Times does not want to appear vulnerable or sound weak, adding that one of the Ayatollah's legs has been operated on 3 times and he is awaiting a prosthetic. I mean, he sounds like he barely escaped with his life. The Times reported his face and lips have been burned severely, making it difficult for him to speak, and he will need plastic surgery. Senior government officials do not visit him, fearing that Israel may trace them to him and kill him, added the outlet, which said most decision-making is being delegated to Tehran's generals rather than civilian political leaders. So that kind of gives you another glimpse into what's going on with their leadership there. They went on to say messages to him are handwritten, sealed in envelopes, and relayed via a human chain from one trusted courier to the next, who travel on highways and back roads in cars and on motorcycles until they reach his hideout. His guidance on issues snakes back the same way. Wow. Wouldn't that be a horrible way to live? To be constantly fearful for your life? That you can't even communicate with the people, with your country, the country that you're supposedly leading. You can't communicate with your generals. The Post went on to say that the report describes Khomeini as difficult to reach. It also cites the Iranian officials as saying the country's president, Pezeshkian, and Health Minister Mohammad Raza have both been involved in his care. The report supports President Trump's contention that peace talks are inhibited by slow communication and uncertainty about whether the foreign minister and parliament speaker are able to speak for their nation. So if you've got your supreme leader literally in the back ages of communication, you do kind of start to understand why they're slow to respond, don't you? They have internal chaos at their leadership level. And, you know, when I first heard that we were again going to extend the ceasefire for another day or two or whatever, I'm thinking they're just delaying this. But when you dig a little deeper and you realize the conditions that they're operating in, I think President Trump is taking the right path. Because maybe with just a little more time, they'll get the team together and they'll make finally the right choice. And that's to save lives by agreeing to some type of peace. Now, on Tuesday, the president extended a 2-week ceasefire indefinitely as we await a response to our latest offer, which, according to reports, prioritizes an end to nuclear enrichment and the relinquishment of about 1,000 pounds of highly enriched uranium. White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt told reporters just this week, there's obviously a lot of internal division. This is a battle between the pragmatists and the hardliners in Iran right now, and the president wants a unified response. And so as we await that response, there is a ceasefire. Again, I think it's the right thing to do. You agree? I'm not, obviously, I'm not, never been in the military. I don't know that much about strategy in war, but this seems reasonable. If in fact, our president and our military officials believe that there is a path to a permanent ceasefire, if there's a path to peace, then I think we can afford to wait a few more days for them to get their story together. The Times reported yesterday that Khomeini has delegated significant authority to the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps. The problem with that is they're considered the more hardline people. In their report, the Times said it was the guards who came up with the strategy for Iran's attacks on Israel and the Persian Gulf states, along with the closing of the strait to maritime traffic. They were the ones who agreed to a temporary ceasefire with the U.S. and approved back-channel diplomacy and direct negotiations with the United States. They trapped Mr. Galibaf from among their own. They tapped him from among their own ranks to lead the talks with Vice President J.D. Vance in Islamabad. Again, if they need a little extra time, I guess I'm okay with that. You agree? That it's better for us to slow down just a bit, not turn Israel loose, because as I told you just a minute ago, the IDF, they're ready to start fighting again. They're ready to go in and finish the job and just totally destroy any infrastructure in Iran, which would put the country into a position that it would take decades for them to ever come back to any resemblance of normalcy. Now, I think it's obviously we have to support Israel, but I also think it's our responsibility to maybe try to temper that response from Israel as well, particularly since we're funding it pretty much, since we're primarily the ones who's allowing Israel to have the resources they need to carry out this war. Again, love to get your comments. Text me, email me, joe@joeyhudson.com. Leave me a message on the MyPillow message line, 864-477-JOEY, 864-477-5639. The Colorado District Attorney charged a federal immigration officer with third-degree assault and criminal mischief this week in a move the Department of Homeland Security is calling unlawful and a political stunt. Eric P. Murray, the district attorney for Colorado's 6th District, announced this week that he's charging U.S. Customs and Border Protection Officer Nicholas Rice with the 2 counts for an incident that occurred during an immigration enforcement activity in Durango, Colorado, between October 27th and October 28th of last year. And Francesca Staggy told investigators that Mr. Rice knocked her phone out of her hand while she was protesting outside a U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement facility in Durango, according to the Associated Press. Now, you know how I feel about this type of thing. If you're there protesting and you get in their face, you may get treated in a less than friendly way. You may get your phone knocked out of your hand. In fact, you may get your phone taken away from you. Video of the incident shows Staggy holding her phone in front of a masked immigration agent's face before the agent grabs it. Staggy then appears to grab the officer's shoulder, big mistake, as he walks away, at which point he grabs her and, along with other federal agents, brings her to the ground. Again, this is shown on the video. I wish I could show it to you. Go to my Facebook page and my YouTube page. Just search for Joey Hudson on either one, and I've shared this. Staggy claimed that the officer put her in a chokehold and that she still feels pain when she puts on a jacket. Now, the video shows the crowd then trying to intimidate the federal officer, who again was wearing a mask, yelling for him to tell them his name. I want you to listen to the audio portion of this.
You won't even show your face? You won't even know who you are? Oh, dude. You can't take my phone. You cannot. Let her go. Let her go. Let her go. Let her go. Call 911. Someone call the police. Someone call the police. What's your name? 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 You legally have to identify yourself. This is a part of the Constitution. Identify yourself. What's your name? What's your name? What's your name?
Now, you tell me. You're a federal officer. You're in this situation. You're wearing a mask for a reason. Now, I still find it rather ironic that I would bet you any amount of money, and I'm not a betting person normally, that those people, that this Miss Staggy probably was one of those during COVID, and maybe still does, believes that we should wear a mask. I'll bet you that she confronted people during COVID for not having a mask on. Now she's upset because a federal officer wears a mask for his own safety, so that idiots like her won't be taking pictures of him and doxing him, putting them out there on social media to threaten his security, to threaten his safety and the safety of his family. And this prosecutor just falls right in there with it, with these idiots. The prosecutor comes after the Colorado Bureau of Investigation opened a probe into the incident after the Durango Police Department Chief Bryce Current asked them to look at it. DHS claimed that the prosecution was a political stunt and that the states have no authority to investigate cases of this nature. DHS told the AP in a statement, federal officers acting in the course of their duties can only be investigated by other federal agencies. Should there be an investigation? After you heard that, and again, let me encourage you to go to my social media sites and watch this for yourself. This is just another example of a bunch of overzealous, anti-Trump, government-hating individuals who think that it's okay for people to be in our country illegally, and that ICE and federal officers, they're the bad guys. I mean, when you watch this video, she's right there in his face, and now she's upset because he knocked her phone out of her hand. And, you know, she could have walked away then. They all could have walked away then. But no, what do? They keep on until finally they push him and the other federal officers into acting and taking them down. Wow. Changing directions here for a minute. Sad story out of Florida, and we hear these stories as we head into spring and summer, and families, a lot of families were on spring break. We'll head into the summer, family vacations, and it's like every year we hear stories like this. So it's another tragedy out of Florida Beach. Jason DeGray is being hailed as a hero. He drowned off the coast of Florida at Cocoa Beach after plunging into what was described as a vicious rip current to save his own son at this very popular beach destination. Sadly, too, a good Samaritan who rushed from the sand to help was also killed, even as the child was pulled to safety. The man, a father of three from Windsor Locks, Connecticut, reached his son, Bryce, and pulled the 12-year-old to safety onto the Cocoa Beach before the current swept him out to sea, according to his wife. DeGray was a hero, an amazing dad and partner, his grieving widow, Megan DeGray, told local media. She said, he was a great father. He did everything for his kids. He was such a hard worker. Again, the tragedy occurred at popular Cocoa Beach, with authorities being called to a water emergency involving 4 people. 2 of the people affected, DeGray and 34-year-old Ebony Mount, a woman from Ohio, they were transported to a hospital, but each did not make it. In a press release, the Cocoa Beach Police Department extends its deepest condolences to the families and loved ones affected by this tragic loss. Megan DeGray said that she was with the couple's youngest child at a nearby Airbnb when the accident unfolded, telling the Connecticut Post that it was super traumatic not being there. Wow. I mean, it's typical. It's a family vacation. Mom's in the house with the younger kid. Dad's out on the beach with the older kid. Gets in trouble. The dad's trying to save him. Loses his own life because of the rip current. And this is, I'm telling you this story not to depress you, but to just remind you that as we start making these beach trips, to be careful. And especially if you're in the Atlantic Ocean, because the Atlantic Ocean is famous, notoriously famous, for these types of riptides. I can remember as a kid being at Folly Beach, just near Charleston, and people getting in trouble at Folly Beach with the riptide. Fortunately, I don't remember anyone ever drowning while we were there. There have been reports of people drowning at Folly Beach, of course. So please, don't let a beautiful, wonderful family vacation turn into a tragedy. This young man's widow said Jason hated the beach. He went in because his son was struggling. DeGray, according to his obituary, was a diehard Las Vegas Raiders fan, spent 25 years working in the flooring industry. The obituary said he grew up with a strong sense of loyalty to family and friends, a trait that defined his life. His children, Bailey, Bryce, and Bren, were the center of his world, and he cherished every moment spent with them. According to the National Weather Center, the Florida coast from the south of Palm Coast to Miami is identified as a high risk for rip currents. Conditions are starting to subside, making the ocean a lot more calm, or appearing to look more calm, but those surf conditions have caused significant damage to the sandbars, causing flash rip currents, Brevard County Ocean Rescue Chief Ison Whitaker told. So again, you got to be careful, folks, because we don't want you and your family to experience something like this. Hey, let me take a minute to talk with you about one of my favorite companies here in the upstate. As spring is finally here, we're heading into the summer. In the upstate, that means more than just warmer weather and greener grass. It means termite swarming season is officially here, folks. You see those little bugs flying around? Quite often that can be termites actually swarming. Right now, they're coming out by the thousands, looking for a new place to start a colony. The danger is that a lot of people mistake them for harmless flying ants. They're not. And as a result of that, people ignore them. And by the time they realize the mistake, the damage to their home's already done. That's why Patriot Pest Management is offering free inspections right now just to make sure your home is protected going into the swarming season. So if you're not sure, be sure, because it's worth getting it checked, and my friends at Patriot Pest Management will do that. I trust them with my home to keep my home safe. They'll do the same for you. Get the peace of mind you deserve from a team that stands behind their work. Call Patriot Pest Management today at 864-895-7299. That's 864-895-7299. Request service online at patriotpestmgt.com. Your comments are welcome on the Furman Ford text line, 864-477-JOEY. That's 864-477-5639. Emails always welcome, joey@joeyhudson.com. Speaking of the Furman Ford text line, it's never been more important to support locally run businesses owned by people who actually live here in the upstate. Let me take a minute to talk with you about our friends at Furman Ford. If you're looking for a new vehicle, maybe a great pre-owned vehicle, one you can trust, or maybe you're looking to order that special vehicle. Either way, if you want a new one, a brand new one, or a pre-owned that you can trust, the folks at Furman Ford, they're there to help you. Their name is on the sign because their name is on the line, because every single transaction is important to them. Jim Furman, Matthew Furman. They do business the right way. When you stop by, when you give them a call, or maybe when you just send them a quick email, you're always going to have access to a member of the Furman Ford family. And by the way, they also offer great service, and you're not going to have to wait weeks and weeks to get it done. And you do not have had to purchase your vehicle at Furman Ford. Doesn't even have to be a Ford. They service all makes and models. Visit my friends at Furman Ford online at furmanford.com, furmanford.com. Over the past few years, I have talked quite a bit. You and I have exchanged ideas on what we can do in the Palmetto State to make it more business friendly from a liability standpoint, particularly in the hospitality business. Over the last year or 2 years, I've had people on like my buddy Carl Sobosinski, who owns Sobeys in the upstate, a lot of other restaurants, Table 301 Dining, Steve Spinks, just a lot of people in that world. Diane Hardy with the Mom and Pop Alliance, because businesses are closing because they can't afford their insurance. And again, primarily in the hospitality business, the restaurants, the bars that sell alcoholic beverages. So last year, the legislature spent a whole lot of time on trying to fix that problem. And there's a lot of ideas on how that can happen. But they came up with a solution that they thought would help. Now, I have cautioned everyone to go into this not expecting anything to happen very quickly. Having had some experience myself in the insurance industry over the years, nothing happens quickly with insurance rates. It wasn't going to be an overnight thing. The law just took effect January the 1st, but we still see businesses closing. So this week, state senators voted to suspend that law requiring minimum insurance coverage for bars and restaurants, claiming the law that they passed last year intended to lower rates and keep businesses open only worsened the problem. Senators added the clause to their draft of the $15.3 billion spending plan in a voice vote this week. What this would mean is a 1-year suspension of any insurance requirements for serving alcohol called liquor liability. Whether the clause survives to the final spending plan remains to be seen, but there is sentiment within the legislature, I think, to try to do something. The House still must agree to this. I don't see the House not agreeing to it. Senate Majority Leader Shane Massey, who proposed the pause, stressed that it's not intended to fix the problem. And he's right, because it won't. The hope, though, is that it will force legislators to come up with a solution before the suspension ends with the June 30th, 2027 close of the fiscal year. He says he does. Senator Massey says he doesn't not want to extend that for another year when that term comes around. Legislators decided again last year they had to do something to lower insurance costs. They pointed to a 2017 law that required all bars and restaurants that served alcohol past 5 p.m. to get a liquor liability insurance policy that covered at least $1 million in damages in case a customer left drunk, crashed, and injured or killed someone. The minimum caused premiums to rise and insurers to leave the state. which increased the cost of policies and driving bars and restaurants out of business or keeping them from opening altogether. That was the problem, or at least they thought was the solution. Now, again, I've had a little bit of experience in the insurance world. Requiring $1 million policy is not the problem. Because let me explain to you what's happening here now. You go into a restaurant, a bar, a tavern that sells alcohol. You consume alcohol there. You go out and you're involved in a DUI, or you hit someone like the case down at in Charleston, where the young woman was drunk. She hit the bride and groom who on their wedding day in a golf cart, killed the bride. They, of course, have sued everyone involved. She had been at multiple bars that day. They've sued them all, which you can expect. The problem in South Carolina is not those limits. The problem is our tort liability. We need tort reform. We don't need these lawyers, and I've got a lot of friends who are lawyers, and I have great respect for them, but these lawyers load everybody up in these lawsuits, and that has what has caused our liability rates to get to the point that some of these businesses can't afford them. It's not the fact that they're required to carry $1 million limit. It's the fact that it's too easy to sue, and it's too easy to include everybody and their brother in the lawsuit. I had a convenience store owner tell me the story of him being sued. Someone had purchased a beer in one of his stores. They had been to multiple bars after that. 4 hours later, after getting one beer from his store, 4 hours later, they're involved in an accident. He is sued along with the bars that this person subsequently visited after leaving his convenience store. That is just wrong. That's the problem. It's not the limits of liability. Now, it's kind of scary right now to know, let's say you and your family are driving down the road and you're hit by a drunk driver, and that drunk driver just left a XYZ bar down the road down here. XYZ bar under this temporary reprieve decided, okay, we're not going to have $1 million in liability. They don't have liquor liability. So you're not going to have anybody to get damages from, only the coverage that driver has. Which, hey, maybe that's the way it should be anyway. Because the bars and the restaurants should not be held responsible for your actions. If you sit down at a bar and you drink too much, yeah, I get it. Bartenders can kind of gauge it, and they can kind of say, okay, I think you've had too many, and push back. But ultimately, you're the responsible party. Ultimately, you need to have enough sense to know when you push away or when not to drive, better yet. If you're drinking, don't drive. It's just that simple. Have one of your friends or your family, your spouse, drive rather than you get behind the wheel. Better yet, call an Uber. That's what Uber's out there for. Now, again, by pausing the requirement, it's not going to solve the problem. It's not even going to solve it on a temporary basis, folks. We have to demand from our legislature that we need full tort reform. And we said this last year. We need full tort reform so that it's not so easy for all these lawyers, and I'm sorry, my friends, lawyer legislators, who are voting on the judges, the very judges that they appear before, to sue other people. We got to have real tort reform in order to solve this problem. And it's not just the bars and restaurants, trucking industry, timber industry. There are a lot of businesses out there who need tort reform so they can afford to stay in business. And again, the compromise that was reached last year between the House and the Senate just really kind of complicated things. For instance, in the current plan that is, if approved, will be suspended, a restaurant where alcohol accounted for less than 40% of total sales could knock off $100,000 from the minimum. Closing before midnight was an option for reducing coverage by $250,000, and so on. There were little carve-outs here. The problem is no insurance carriers are offering these types of policies. So we haven't improved anything at all. And the legislature is going to have to get back to work. That's it for today's edition of Just the Truth. Thanks for joining me in the PhD Weight Loss and Nutrition Studio. To lose weight for the last time, visit myphdweightloss.com. If you haven't joined our mailing list yet, visit my website, joeyhudson.com. Just click on the Connect with Joey button so that you can receive our emails and the most up-to-date news. Also, find me on YouTube. Be sure and like, subscribe, follow me on my YouTube channel. Just search for Joey Hudson. Appreciate you spending a few minutes of your day with me. Be sure and forward this edition of Just the Truth to some friends. Just click on the share button. Send it to a few of your contacts, because if we're going to build our community and if we're going to win in November, we got to build an army of conservatives. The way we beat Joe Biden is through educating people, and no better way than encouraging them to listen to Just the Truth. Hey, keep those comments coming via the Furman Ford text line, 864-477-JOEY, 864-477-5639. Your emails always welcome as well. Joey@joeyhudson.com. Don't forget to take advantage of the MyPillow special, $25 for the My Towels 6-piece towel set when you use promo code Joey. Just go to mypillow.com.